Hi, everybody. How's it going? Yeah, yeah, VCC. Woohoo! Thanks for coming. My name's Daniel Ruiz. I came to VCC and did my degree in drums and percussion, and I'm pretty stoked and honored to be back and share some music and some things that I've been working on with percussion, drums, and electronics. Lately, I've been doing a lot of looping and just playing along with loops and recordings with electronic. Like this is a drum machine. We'll get into like the things that I'm using. But I want to start with just like a little improv of playing around with these instruments. And then we'll go from there. I want to talk also about the relationship to the metronome and like the concept of how important it is to feel a groove and to feel rhythm, especially as a human being, I'd say, because, beyond being a drummer or a musician, like rhythm is something that is so ingrained in our lives and we don't even realize as much. So it's good to think about those things. And whenever you're servicing and playing music, which is such a gift and such a beautiful thing, to keep that in mind, because it always allows that relationship to like become a conversation, whether it's with your bandmates or it's with the audience or, essentially also within yourself. So that's why I really like rhythm. I like grooves. I like kind of like that constant motion that rhythm gives us. And I try to apply it with my playing and my being. So thanks for coming. I'll start with a bit of an improv and then share some other things and tricks. So I just kind of want to talk a bit of what I'm doing. You probably realize that I'm like stomping something on my left here. I have a looping pedal. It's one of those Boss normal looping pedals. Guitarists might know it. You basically stomp on the pedal and play a lick or whatever. In this case, I was kind of like trying to loop the drum machine and then playing along with samples that I have in this drum pad and kind of creating layers and layers on it. You probably also noticed that I'm not perfect, and there is a bit of like flamming happening with the drum machine eventually when the loop started happening, which in some cases it works out, sometimes it just doesn't. It all depends on how you feel with it, right? But a big thing that I think it's important to keep in mind always is that motion, that the groove or whatever intent you're putting in drives whatever musical phrase you want to bring. And that's such an important ingrained thing that we need to always keep in mind when we're sight reading, when we're just playing along to things, to be able to listen and adapt. In this case, I was trying to improvise along the drum kit, basing myself on what the looping was doing. Myself, I was like really into my headphones. This helps me stay ingrained with that inner metronome that I think is just like the most important thing that you always want to bring out as a musician, that thing that makes you want to move, even if it's like a very romantic, slow ballad. You're playing it in the piano. You still have to get that flow. It's kind of like, your heartbeat pumps in and out blood. Your lungs fill in and out. So there is that constant like cycle that you gotta like, respect and keep in mind when you're putting your intent into the music. And it's such a like weird, ethereal thing to talk about. But for me, in my case, I grew up teaching myself how to play music, being stoked on like, okay, I'm gonna play along to recordings. I'm from Colombia originally. I moved to Canada with the goal to learn how to read music, to understand theory and all those things. And I came to VCC to be like, please teach me. And I was so keen and so into it and learned all those skills. And gradually I started realizing that that inner feeling is what really matters most on whatever course you are in music. Like now when I listen to even the cheesiest pop song, I find something that like allows me to connect to it or try to connect to it. And most of the time for me, it has to do with some sort of rhythm or phrasing on how you just like, oh, cool, that riff is awesome, but why is it awesome? Is it just the notes, or is it how the notes feel and move through the time? So, anyways, that for me is such a like big inspiration to do this, because I always try to like expand myself and push those limits and be like, how can I get the weird stuff out and like embrace those things, because those are part of the process, and that's what makes you be you. And like ideally, you as a musician want to have your own voice. You learn from others, from assimilating things, transcribing things, all these things that we're doing in school that were like so handy and so helpful for your musicianship. But at the end of the day, it really has to come into what you want from it and how you feel with it and what it brings to you. And whenever that magic happens, like I'm sure we've all been there when, you've practiced for so long and then you're kind of like in this doozy, but then it just feels natural and you're just having a good time. Anyways, so with this gear, I also have, I recently acquired this KeyStep Pro. It's an Arturia MIDI controller, but it's also a sequencer. So it's kind of cool because it allows me to explore a lot of sounds. And sometimes I just like pick and choose something from a library of sounds that I have in Logic, or in a DAW, digital audio workstation, Ableton. There's so many different ones. I'm sure you've worked with some. And then it allows me to explore with these sounds and try to like make journeys within rhythm to play along. Because like that for me is cool. I can practice and do things, but when I have some sort of backing track, it's kind of like replacing the metronome, you know? If I'm playing along to a metronome, it's like, cool, I'm working on my time. But what if the metronome is a really cool, sick beat? Like, okay, that's gonna make me groove on to it more, right? So it's something that maybe I can recommend any of you to try practicing, like maybe make a couple loops or get some and put them in different tempos and play along your exercises, because that might give you a bit of a different life to it, you know? Instead of being like, okay, my scales again, but what if it's like, oh yeah, my scales, they're feeling good because I'm like grooving with it. So something that maybe you want to consider. Don't just do it because I said, because I'm a drummer and I just love that. But anyways, I'm gonna play another few things. This one is a bit more of a song that has kind of like a pre-recorded sample. Sorry, a pre-recorded sample. Sweet, thank you. That song itself, I kind of like played every time differently. I just base myself a bit on what that loop does. Sometimes I make different drum machine patterns to it. I match them to the tempos. So I know that this rate of that chord goes at 80 BPM, so I set up my drum machine at 80 BPM and work with that. Sometimes I also go into the places where I try to loop that with the pedal and see how accurate I can be or inaccurate, and then go with that. So I'm gonna try to do that as an example to see what goes differently. Maybe try to catch a bit of that. You know, like when I went into that noise section where I went into places that I actually had no idea where I wanted to go there, but I was just trying to express myself. You know what I mean? And I used the looping exercise that I did to kind of keep me in track of that, but not, like my mental exercise there was to be like, no, I don't want to be with the looping pedal. I want to scream, get my feelings out, whatever, you know? And that is ideally what I want to like express and show you, you know, with this exercise is to like really try to internalize and feel that inner you that like made you want to do music and take this path to like practice so much and do all these things. But like, why do you do it? Like, does it make you feel amazing? If the answer is yes, then just do it. Keep on doing it. Don't be shy. Don't be shy to like let that come out because it's necessary. It's part of you. And that is what, you know, the art itself will allow you to, you know, get through. And, you know, especially in these times where like things are so hard. Like we don't have gigs. We don't go to shows, and if there's a show, it's like seated, and it's not the same experience. But if you can like, kind of like be the light within yourself to bring that energy and that, you know, feeling, that's like what for me is what takes me from, you know, a really good performance to a like, wow, that was a performance. That was like something that made me feel something. That for me is like what the magic of music should be all about. You know what I mean? Cool. I mean, let's see. Sweet. We got plenty of time still. Yeah, groove-click relationship. I wanted to talk a bit more in depth about that because I'm sure like the more we practice and go through routines of like exercises or this like, you know, whatever I have to do for my jury, there's that process, and I'm sure your teachers talk about making things slow and internalizing that muscle memory and gradually increasing the speed. It's such a good discipline to have, you know, and like putting those things, marking them down. It's like, okay, today I did it at 60, tomorrow I'm gonna try 67, 62, whatever it is, or I can't do it, I'm gonna stay at 60. But like that consistency is what really gets you to those places, right? So internalizing that relationship, especially on the harder, slower tempos, we're not used to doing that. But that's the thing that's gonna really, really help you in the long run. Because the way I think about it is your brain has all this time to really develop the movement, whatever it is, in that slow pace. And then when you really, you know, connect with those movements and those like motions of like, this is how the piece sounds. It's super awkward. But then once you start developing the super awkward, is just basically better, and like it just feels like, oh, it's not awkward anymore. Whatever, I'm here, I'm playing the song. So, but that process of, you know, that development really needs to come from your own like discipline within it. That's why practicing, you know, and different instruments have different challenges in that sense. I know trumpet players have to practice every day to keep their chops up, and that's a thing that we hear as drummers too. Like, you know, my fast swing, if I don't do it in a constant manner with that exercise of like, okay, this is my like limit threshold that I have right now. I'm working on making it higher. I'm not gonna do it overnight. I have to do it gradually, and like getting my muscle memory to like develop those little details. So it was an exercise that I actually did with a band that I played with a while back, and we actually learned our songs, we had them down, and then we were like, okay, we need to make this set really good because it was like a very important set. And we started actually putting on the PA the loudest click possible and playing the songs at like 50 BPM. So we were just like playing rock songs, but like super slow. And it was like very uncomfortable, but that's when you actually realize where the parts fit in the song. And then later on, after all those exercises, when we played the songs at normal tempo, like it was rocking. It was like so solid. Everybody was tight and together. So it's something to keep in mind. Like I know, I remember as a music student too, a lot of people were afraid of the click or being like, oh, the click, oh my God, whatever. But that's, for me, it always had been my best friend to keep me in track of where I am and what I'm doing. Like those Bartok exercises in first year, I didn't know how to play piano. I played those at like 40. Like sometimes my exam was like super slow and the teacher's like, okay, well, you did it at tempo, but oh my God. But at the same time, that developed that muscle memory. So it's a trick or a tip that I suggest because it really makes a difference for that internalizing the music. You know, like that for me is the most important thing, right? You have all these exercises, it might be daunting and all that, but like once you get it and you feel like you're, oh, this feels right, it's because you put that inner relationship within that rhythm and that flow that I was talking about. Cool. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna do, actually, I wanted to show you a Colombian rhythm that is very popular nowadays because of reggaeton music and Justin Bieber, but it is based on cumbia, and cumbia is like our traditional music in Colombia. And the emphasis there is something that I find very natural, but some people don't, and it's the 3 and 4 on the bass drum. So the groove itself, if we kind of dissect it, is a straight groove. Kind of like if we were swinging would be, but no, it's straight. And then your bass drum is gonna hit the 3 and 4. One, 2, right? So then you already, like I see a few of the heads bopping from that, which is interesting because it gives us that syncopation of, ooh, I wanna. And then it goes to that, right? That's kind of like the reggaeton thing that I was talking about. That groove you hear nowadays in pop songs all the time. And for me, it's just like, what? Like, that's reggaeton. That's from like 20 years ago or more. But it's like so popular. Now they're doing it like, you know, with 808s, like. You know what I mean? So, let's do like a collaborative experience on this. As simple as, so let's divide the room. You guys over there are gonna do, yeah, let's do the quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you guys are gonna do the 3, 4. 1, boom, 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 boom. Nice. So now you guys, instead of doing the quarter note, you're gonna do the 8th note quarter note. And you guys, boom, 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 boom. Can you guys yell the 1? 1, 1. What? Boom, boom. Let's switch. You guys? Boom, boom. Nice. Good job. Awesome. Have any of you heard of cumbia before? Yeah? Okay, well, it's as simple as that. Like, normally there's 4, 5 different percussion instruments doing it, but the adaptation for the drum kit is that. And then, you can develop it into kicking those bass drums on the one and making the syncopation on the snare. And now you hear Drake doing, in whatever songs they do now. Like, it's quite common, very simple groove. And also, one thing that I used to, teach to my students that play on instruments, it's adapting grooves on the drum set onto your instrument. So if you can do, on guitar, boom, 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 right? Like, internalizing grooves really helps your feel and your instrument, right? Like, it's back to what I was mentioning before, like the importance of rhythm and that inner drive to let us groove along to whatever, piece or musical experience we're doing. And it comes to the instant moment of being there on the stage or on the present moment, right? Like, it's like that thing that I learned with Alan Matheson in big band here. You gotta keep sight reading. If you messed up, whatever, but you gotta keep in line with the band because that's the common denominator for everybody. We're all in that space and time together. So if you make a mistake, whatever, everybody makes mistakes. Like, it's just about how you can find yourself back into that feeling and space without getting too much into your head. Oh, the page fell out, I don't know what to do. Then listen, try to connect. It's very simple, but it's also very hard because, we get in our heads and things happen and all these things. But at the same time, I always tell myself, it's fine, it's just music. And I'm just lucky to be able to play it and be in it. So get back to that place. Okay, cool, now we're back. So when I did that exercise of getting wild, it's kind of expressing those things, making those mistakes, getting out of the comfort zone, but knowing that at the same time, there's always gonna be the backup, the timeline that happens. Life goes on. Whatever I said 5 minutes ago, it's in the past, right? So it's like that motion of constant cycle. Actually, I also want to open questions. Anything anybody want to comment or anything like that? If not, I'm going to play another song, if that's okay. This one, I kind of want to finish with this one. And it's kind of related to what we just did with the cumbia and reggaeton groove. It's a faster version of it. And yeah, hope you like it. And I would encourage you all to dance, because that's the other thing that's very important with rhythm. The dancing, the movement, that relationship with the audience. I don't know if you've played gigs or been there already where you are performing and you see the people vibing. That's such a connection. So make sure you honor that. Make sure you're there with them. Make sure you dance if you can along. And that's for me something that I try to thrive every time is even if there's 2 people in the audience, let's vibe. Let's make this connection. So it's, hope if you can dance in your seats, go for it. If you don't want to, don't do it. But here we go. All right. So yeah, another example. Things didn't go where I wanted them to go, or I didn't like. I just kind of followed that path, but then, in those moments where I was like uncertain of what I was doing because I was like, oh, that fill, I did something and it went awry or whatever. I found myself back in this relying space of time, keeping me in loop. Like, it's okay, I'm here, I'm your friend. So all I wanted to like really emphasize here is find your inner groove within your instrument, your inner rhythm, and make it your best friend. Play with it. Like, go and explore all the different tempos, explore grooves, like trying to analyze music in the rhythmical sense and aspect of things, not just like, oh, this is like a sharp 9 or whatever it is, right? That is very important, and it's really cool to like be able to have crazy harmonies and beautiful sounds. But if it's not delivered with the grace or like intent that it's meant to be, that comes from that rhythm, from that inner light. I kind of call it like that. You have the power to make it groove, make it feel good. So take that. I hope that makes sense and it helps you with your journey with music, and give yourself that like pat in the back for doing it, because music is so important for all of us. And just the fact that you spend time trying to craft that and honor it, it's like a huge, huge thing. So, keep being inspired and write, play, keep that open learning mindset, because you're always going to learn new things. No matter how old you are, how experienced you are, something is going to like blow your mind, and you're going to want to work on it. And that's kind of like the nice, beautiful thing about it. We're never going to achieve that peak limit, because there's none. You get to a place where you feel comfortable with things, and you're like, oh, there's things that I'm not comfortable with. Let's try to explore those things. And it's kind of like expanding your never-ending bubble of things where you can borrow things from. That's also a good exercise to have. Make it a place for you to explore your instrument without having to be like, oh, I have to do these certain techniques. It's like, whatever it is, right? Like there's an exercise I learned from a great drummer, Billy Martin, and he was talking about letting kind of like the subconscious take over. So making the little exercises of like, I'm gonna play for 5 seconds, whatever comes to mind, take a break, now try to borrow something completely different. Think about dynamics, think about timbre, things that you can do. Like with the drum set is very fun because it's very tactile. Like being, such an acoustic instrument, you can make weird sounds. Nothing is wrong. And you can do that with, I'm sure you all know Giorgio. Giorgio is great for explaining this. Like, explore the instrument and be comfortable with not being normal. You know what I mean? It's part of the process, and it helps that expanding bubble to have more places where you can borrow from. Whenever you're in like that funk gig, okay, now I can do my funk things, but then this is more, ethereal, singer-songwriter, like beautiful and majestic. So like you don't want to be playing a funk groove through that. You want to be like exploring sounds and trying to, support the music the way you think would be, adequate and would benefit the song, That's one thing that is very important. Like, am I gonna play and is it gonna benefit the song, or is it just gonna be me playing along to it because I can do it and it's whatever, Like, the intent is very important. I think it translates to everything in life, putting that intent of your actions and, trying to find a reason why you do these things. It really helps find that clarity of feeling like, okay, cool, I love music. Anyways, thank you, and enjoy your weekend.